Santa, how are you,
Ah,
sir?
John, Matt, how are you guys?
I am honored to, I still believe in you.
Thank you. Here I am. I'm
We're
happy to be with
super
you.
excited to have you on the show. I want to tell you, I'm so excited to have you on the show that I actually did put on pants for this interview, even though you're not gonna see the pants. And I don't know, Matt probably didn't have pants on.
I'm so excited to see you. I don't have pants on. You want to see? You want to see? I can do that for you.
No.
We'll reach a much broader audience.
Our,
different kind of voter right there.
Right.
our audience does prefer that I don't wear pants. It's weird. It's weird how that goes.
Well, again, Santa, really appreciate you coming on. We're super excited to have you on. We've been fanboying over you for quite a while now, I feel like. So it's truly is an honor to have you on board. And we want to jump in and just ask you some questions about your campaign, about what you're running on, and about you as a person, and hopefully give our listeners a little more of an idea of who you are and what you can do and how we can support. So the first question I got is just the introductory question, because you seem like a Renaissance man. When I read your bio, you've done everything, it feels like, and you don't do it small either. So how does a Renaissance man like yourself end up in a town like North Pole, Alaska? Because when I read your bio, a lot of what you did is in New York City, Washington, D.C. is kind of where you started. So tell me how you ended up in North Pole, Alaska.
Thank you for couching my history that way. I ended up in North Pole, Alaska, because I had been a child advocate for a long time, volunteer child advocate. And to make a very long story short, I was living at Lake Tahoe at the time, up on the Nevada side, a place called Incline Village, beautiful snowy place in the winter and beautiful in the summer as well. And I had grown out my beard in 2004 just for fun. And people said, "Oh, you ought to do the Santa thing this winter." And I figured, well, I'll see. So I did. And I volunteered for about 30 nonprofits around the lake, and it was well received. And that February, I was walking to the post office up in the snow and praying like monks usually do. I've been a monk for a long time. And I was saying, I was praying, what should I do with this appearance? How can I use it to benefit the greatest number of children? And about 20 seconds or so after I finished my prayer, this white nondescript car came up the road towards me, and its windows were open. So I kind of glanced over, but I couldn't see who was inside. And right after my prayer, a male voice shouted out, "Santa, I love you," in February. So I figured, well, that's a pretty fast answer to prayer. So I contacted the county clerk the next day and started the process for a legal name change, which I did. And it actually came to a judge who'd just been appointed by the governor, and the judge was, kind of hesitant about approving my request, even though the public has a chance to contest name change requests. So he called the governor, and the governor said, "Oh yeah, that's the guy that volunteered for the state and did some other stuff, and yeah, just go ahead and do it." So he did, and the next call I got was from the county clerk saying, "Santa, come down, pick up your paperwork, you're good to go." The fun part was the first time going through Transportation Security Administration. It was close enough to 9/11 that they were being very wary, which I understood. But that's how the Santa part started. And then North Pole, I was having a lot of success. I'd been on Santa's Bless the Children tour to all 50 states, talking about children's issues with governors and US senators who had offices in capital cities, and also went to DC to visit Congress there. I was born in DC. And after having some success with Santa Claus in North Pole calling, "Can I speak to the governor, please?" And their chief of staff or policy director or somebody would usually put me through pretty quickly, just because it's an unusual call. And I figured, well, what if this was Santa Claus from North Pole? So I looked into North Pole, Alaska, and figured, well, this would be a good move. So I moved on up, and now when I call up a legislator, it's Santa Claus from North Pole. Can I talk to so-and-so about this children issue that's going to, be coming up on their agenda very shortly? So that's kind of how that whole Santa Claus in North Pole started. That's gross oversimplification, but that's the gist of it.
That's
and now you're story. And now you're going to beat Sarah Palin. Congress?
uh, she and I haven't talked, but on that 50-state tour that I mentioned before, I visited Alaska, obviously, and I couldn't drive there to Alaska or Hawaii, of course, but when I got there, she, much to my surprise, she had arranged a meeting with, I think it was either 4 or 6 department heads, which was very unusual for a governor to do. And she, popped in for about 5 minutes. And I said, thank you so much. And she left. And you could hear like about 20 minutes later, this helicopter take off. And that was her leaving from the Coast Guard base to go somewhere. And that's the only time I've seen her. So everybody makes mistakes during their lifetime, and she's being reminded of a few that she paid. But one of the funnier ones, we were talking before a moment ago, and there have been a few, believe it or not, since I've been running for Congress, there have been a few attack ads against Santa, which I thought was kind of, as well as surprised me. But the one that I found most interesting was a couple of the people in the media are characterizing the race as, just because of name recognition mostly, the race as between Santa and Pinocchio. Could give Pinocchio awards. So I thought that was kind of funny. And it's not one of these, horrible ads. It was just a cute kind of, and she stuck with the Pinocchio awards anyway. So it's not like it was pulled out of thin air. So that
leave it to a Trump supporter to make a tack ad on Santa. And just,
Yeah, they've been calling me all sorts of stuff. And I think it comes from that dynamic is love versus fear. My campaign is based in love, I believe. And the fear part of it is what I hear in the attack ads, their fear of losing something, whatever it is, control or the election or their platform or whatever. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And even kids can understand that, like with bullies and stuff. A lot of the bullies are the ones who really need the help. And I'm just kind of letting it roll off my back. Long before my Santa years, I developed kind of a tough skin. When I was 23, I'd graduated from New York University in the film and TV department. And we didn't have enough coursework at the time. And so we did about a third of our studies independent study, which was almost unheard of back then. So my independent study was videotaping with a Sony Portapak, black and white helical scan, very heavy equipment, the police department's emergency services district. They're the ones who respond to hostage things and people get run over by subway trains and jumpers off of buildings and whatever. So here I was as a student carrying around all this equipment in the police department, and they kind of got used to it. But with the law enforcement stuff, that's when I started seeing a lot of children falling through the cracks. So that's when my interest in all that sort of stuff began. Very, very pre-Santa. So a lot of the people that are looking at my campaign think, oh, this is some guy who just changed his name. He's Santa Claus, big deal. Why should we vote for him? Well, years ago, I was special assistant to the Deputy Police Commissioner of New York City, director of the Terrorism Research and Communications Center, while I was a member of FEMA's National Defense Executive Reserve and Chief of Safety and Security U.S. Virgin Islands Port Authority, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Earned my bachelor's and master's degree at New York University, where I completed my coursework for a doctorate in educational communication and technology. Never did the dissertation, so it's still just Santa Claus. But that's kind of the background. And with all those kind of attack ads and stuff, I think most of the people don't realize there's actually some substance behind my campaign. Unlike some other people, some people have name recognition in Alaska. Sarah and I, for better or for worse, have it throughout the country.
Well, I want to go back and I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier. You were talking about, fear versus love and how the country seems like just incredibly divided. And it seems like that we are so extreme when it comes to political views these days, or at the very least, the ones that have the loudest voices are the most extreme folks, right? Because I feel like those are the ones that get the most clicks, the most views, the most attention. If you could, I guess, talk to folks that are writing these attack ads, or folks that are afraid that something awful is going to happen if you get elected to the people of Alaska? Because Alaska's kind of a historically red state. It feels like they've, historically been Republican. You're running under the Democrat side of things. So I understand you're not a true Democrat, but I just wonder if you could speak to some of those extreme folks and try to ease their mind about what's going to happen once Santa Claus gets elected. What would you say?
Well, for starters, I'm an independent, progressive, democratic socialist.
Okay.
It's a mouthful. There's a lot in there, but it's nothing abrupt or disruptive. We're in a capitalist society. We are in a democracy. Democratic socialists recognize that. That's why we're democratic socialists, not just socialists. Progressives try and work for positive social change, in our view. And independent means I'm not asking for or accepting fundraising or any of that stuff, campaign contributions. I want to be independent so that I can say, well, here's my platform, which in fact, when people ask me about the platform, I just refer them to Bernie Sanders' website, because he spent 30 years developing his, and why should I reinvent the wheel? So that's berniesanders.com/issues. Mine is SantaClausForAlaska.com. But if people are interested, so if I were talking to somebody like the ones you just mentioned, I would say it's really not much to worry about. It's good for your family. It's good for business. It's good for our environment. I mean, it's all positive stuff. And Alaska is situated, it's about twice the size of Texas if people aren't familiar with it. And we're sort of way in the upper left on the maps that you see of the United States. So our big issues right now, aside from climate change affecting subsistence and some other issues up here, we have a gigantic defense responsibility now that things are heating up with Russia, supposedly. We're only 50 miles away, and even though I can't see Russia from my front porch, it's still an issue. So I'm hoping that voters recognize that we kind of have to beef up our defenses, not so much with the money part of it, but just wise. It's the Defense Department, not the War Department. So we have to do the best we can up here. And also another big issue is natural resources. We have a lot of oil and gas resources here in mining as well. And to develop those responsibly is a big challenge. A lot of people are rooting for this big expansion. Well, it's really up to the oil companies. They're sitting on a lot of leases they're not even using, but they want to go into the Arctic refuge, and I'm totally against that. They have plenty of resources they could be developing without even going there. I'm all for protecting sacred lands and that kind of stuff, and keeping our First Peoples sovereignty intact. So anyway, we have those resources. So between defense and natural resources, all I've seen is like the oil companies jacking up the prices. That's not because of the war. That's because they're going to gouge people, in my opinion. And up here, we need some people controlling that issue and not subsidizing oil and gas companies anymore. They've been doing it for years. In fact, an interesting thing with the legislature up here, when, and this used to be true in the past, I think it still is, when an issue came up with oil and gas, people sitting in the legislature who were working in the oil and gas industry and receiving benefits and salaries from it, when a vote would come up, they would recuse themselves, but under Alaska law, the chairman, whoever, could override the recusal and they could vote. And I'm thinking, that's BS. If you're in that industry, you're voting on it, that I don't
seems a little like might be a little conflict of interest there.
Yeah, so being a blue dot, as you were saying, in a red sea up here, North Pole is considered one of the most conservative areas in Alaska. Well, I served a 3-year term on city council. This year, I got reelected. I'm serving last year, my second term. And this year I'm mayor pro tem. So I must be doing something right, even though the odds might be stacked against me up here. Plus I was appointed to the Alaska Public Broadcasting Commission a while back, just because of some experience I've had running a radio and TV station. So it's a little bit different, but that's how I would approach it and find some common ground, even with Don Young, the fellow who passed away a while back, who I would be replacing for the end of this term. He and I, even though we had very disparate political views, we found common ground and things like he started up the Congressional Cannabis Caucus. I supported him with that because I've been a medical marijuana or medical cannabis patient for more than a decade to treat cancer, and I use edibles, and that's sort of kept it at bay for me, and it does for some other people as well. Even children that have, seizure disorders and stuff can get some relief from the cannabidiol and stuff with, doctor's recommendation. So finding common ground is important. Even the two senators that are up there, they're Republican, but one's into defense, and I'd like to see things like military suicides stop, and military, and physical assaults against members of the military. That sort of stuff should be addressed. So that's kind of a common, issue. The other senator is now getting interested in the challenges presented by our aging population. So, there's plenty of stuff to work with. If I were in there for the 4 months, it would only be for September through the end of the year. And I think there's a way to work with those folks and get some stuff accomplished that I would like to see, or at least help with it, or at least help the progressives. Would you like to know what those are?
Tell me more.
No? All right, I'm just going to read off a little bit.
Go ahead.
Medicare for all, union solidarity. I've been a union member for 51 years, so I'm all for unions. Strong defense, especially up here, improved infrastructure, including broadband, especially since it helps military, education, businesses, et cetera, and me. I'm all for eradicating homelessness, preventing and treating drug addiction, especially the fentanyl problem right now, providing the best public safety services possible, restoring the child tax credit, and ensuring a woman's right to choose. I'm all for getting a train rail service between Alaska and Alberta, Canada, which makes it easier to kind of go through Canada to get down to the lower 48, which is what we call the states beneath Alaska and to the right. Have to address climate change and its impacts on Alaska. Once the permafrost starts to disappear, there are going to be some impacts regarding pandemics and stuff nobody's had to deal with for centuries. And that's going to be a big issue. And as I mentioned before, defending the Arctic refuge, and also fisheries. That's a big industry up here. And somebody wants to put a mine right next to one of the biggest salmon fisheries up here, which I think is a really poor idea. So there are issues like that. And in 4 months, you can only do so much in Congress. But I think sort of preparing the way for whoever wins the two-term election, or the 2-year election subsequent to what my term would be, it sort of gives them a clean slate, and they can kind of pick up where I left off, and they'll have, no matter who gets in, Democrat, Republican, Independent, or unaffiliated, whatever, they can go whichever way they like and not be saddled with any baggage, if you know what I mean. And if I've been able to make some inroads, great, they can pick it up if they want to or not. And if I haven't, Alaska certainly is not going to be any worse off. So to people that don't quite understand why I'm running, I'm running for them. I'm trying to put in 4 months where I'm actually working for Alaskans while the other candidates are campaigning and fundraising. I mean, I don't think people in office at the federal level especially should be detracting from their work schedule to fundraise and campaign for the next term. That sounds ridiculous to me. So I'm hoping that people here will realize here's an opportunity for them to really concentrate on their term on their efforts for the 2-year term, and do whatever they like, and just let somebody who's not interested in that go in, do a short period of service, leave it slightly better off than they found it. Boom. Does that sort of make sense?
Absolutely. So I surveyed the people here in San Francisco, and I just have 3 questions for you, Santa. Number 1, can you see Alaska from your kitchen? Or no, can you see Russia from your kitchen? Sorry. You can get to me on that one. Number 2, no, okay, well, all right. 2, with everything that has happened this week with the Roe v. Wade potential decision coming down from the Supreme Court, you did say you believe in a woman's right to choose. My question to you would be, if it looks like it's going to get passed back down to the states as a representative and a leader in Alaska and everything, what can you do? Because this is going to be like a powder keg for the left and the right when this does get passed down. So now my question of what you believe in when it comes to Roe v. Wade, because you've already stated that, but we're going to need a lot of healing. And I know that that's what you're about and everything. So my second question to you is, how can you as a representative, as a public figure, when this comes, especially being in a very red state, how can you help bring healing? And third, if you get elected, can John and I come to DC while you're there? Can you give us a tour of the chambers? I think that might be the most important question. But anyways, the floor to you, Mr. Claus.
Thank you. Well, as the first one is no. The second one, or the third one, is yes. I'd be happy to give you a tour if I'm in there.
Okay. That's a verbal contract there, John Clark. So
I'd be happy to do it. As long as you're not going to conduct an insurrection, then I can't give you a tour. I'm pretty sure you don't have that on your agenda.
Dang it! I guess I'll leave my Molotov cocktails at home when I come to see you.
So the second question, with the Roe v. Wade from 1973, I support that decision. If I were a woman, which I'm not, I would be protecting my uterus. As a man, if somebody told me they were going to force me to do something with my testicles or my penis, I'd be pretty upset about it. And getting back to that whole thing, when I was 40, I decided to have a vasectomy, and I had it at Planned Parenthood. So Planned Parenthood gets tagged with all this other stuff, only a teeny tiny portion of their business has to do with abortions. And they offer just this incredibly wide range of family planning services. And I don't see why a lot of people are getting into a woman's business. That decision should be hers alone. And no matter which pronouns or whatever anybody's using, if a woman has a uterus, they should be able to protect that. The issue should be between them, and if they have a doctor, some don't, they have a doctor, between them and their physician, or between them and their family, if they're sharing that with their family, or between them and their creator, whoever they might, or whatever they might think of as their creator. So, and that's where I think it should stop. How about, it just reminds me of stuff like, if people are trying to control women that way, what about controlling the men who impregnate them? If that's a problem, why aren't all men have vasectomies? And then if they decide to have a family and they're not out trying to rape somebody, have the vasectomy reversed? You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing that it brings to my mind. So if people want to mess around with women that way, make it an even playing field, just like the whole thing with the right to life. They're not talking about the right to life. They're talking about the right to birth. Because the minute that little one pops out, see ya.
Yeah. You mentioned that, and I think, I know that, you spend all of your time catching up on the Rants episodes when you're free and when you're just sitting at home, in your kitchen.
He's our number one fan.
Trying to see Russia. But, Matt and I are both pro-life. But what I will say is I agree with you 100% in that a lot of conservative Christians especially they only care about the baby being born. And then once it's born, throw it in the foster care system, let the mother and the baby have a horrible life. And I think where we would agree with you is that we have to do a better job. If we're going to be pro-life, we have to do a better job taking care of the needs of both the child and the mother, regardless of the situation, after the baby is born and before the baby's born as well. So I think there's definitely some common ground there in the way that you think about it and we think about it. That is something that infuriates me as a conservative Christian, because I will hear people say, oh, yes, pro-life, 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 pro-life. And then when we talk about, what do we need to raise taxes so that we can make sure that, baby and mom are taken care of? If we're going to be about pro-life, are we going to start putting our money where our mouth is and adopt more babies as well, with the means that we have, so that these babies aren't thrown into foster care? And that's kind of where the buck stops with a lot of people. And so I think we definitely agree there.
Well, we're supposed to love, nurture, and protect our children. And with the whole right to life thing, so what about people on death row? What about people with drug addiction problems who die? What about people with diseases? Why weren't people wearing masks? You care about life? Not you.
Right, sure, no, I get it.
Right.
Why, when people bring up this whole issue, they're really not, it's not a pro-life at all, in my view. And I've been to seminary. I am a monk. I was a priest for a while, a missionary bishop. And, going through seminary and stuff, you get a lot of different views and exposures, to different concepts and, even political platforms and stuff. And what I gleaned from years in seminary and from completing my bachelor's, master's, and all my coursework for a doctorate at New York University, which I didn't do the dissertation, as I mentioned, but we are to love one another, period. Doesn't say but or if or whatever. We are to love one another.
Yep. Well, I'll just tell you, I agree with you on the death penalty and all of that stuff. Like for me, like being pro-life, if you will, we actually have an episode where John and I are like almost throwing punches with each other, because I'm like, how can you say you're pro-life but want to support the death penalty? And I mean, yeah, you even brought in the mask thing. Like how many of these quote unquote pro-life people didn't care if they spread COVID because they weren't going to wear a mask because they weren't going to be told by what the government's going to tell them? So that's a very good point. And I just want to say, because I know John's giving me the eyes. He's got more questions for you. So I gotta say this is like, I think one of the big things that we do on our show, and we get a good response from people from it, is, I'm not a Republican at all. I mean, I would probably say I'm more pro-life Democrat than I am a Republican. But we disagree. John and I disagree with each other. We have you on, and there's some things that you're talking about here. They go, I don't agree with it. You're better than Palin, I'll say that. But I appreciate the fact that even when you have done the deep diving on us and you listen to the shows, and I know you're our number one fan, you're gonna get the Rants tattoo right there after you get out of Congress. We'll go get it together. But I appreciate that you knew that we're not lined up with you 100% on the political spectrum, but you still came on, and that we can disagree and not see eye to eye on everything. And I can still look at you as a patriot, and well, you can't look at John as a patriot, but hopefully you look at me as a patriot as well. I came to San Francisco because I knew you were a socialist, because all Republicans think this is where socialism was birthed. So that's why I'm here, just for you,
Democratic
Santa.
Socialist.
Yeah, Democratic Socialist. That's why I'm here, in honor of you.
Yeah.
I posted a picture or tweeted a picture of a woman wearing this great T-shirt, and speaking of the control and stuff like that, the T-shirt said, if you don't wear a mask because God will protect you, why do you need a gun?
Right.
That's a good question.
Right. I mean, being in Nashville, in a very red state, John and I are vaxxed, and people have looked at us, or when we've worn masks and stuff, and people have looked at us like we're Putin. here. You know, I mean, like I could be barbecuing a baby and they wouldn't get the same response as me telling people I'm vaxxed up, you know?
Yeah. My brother lives in Memphis.
Oh, okay. Well, when you come to Memphis, come on by. John and I will take you for some hot chicken.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, on us. Well, we're coming to the end of our time together, Santa. And I did want to just sort of give you the opportunity to plug yourself before we get offline. June 11th, we're voting to finish out the term that's been vacated by the previous congressman. Where can people go to vote for you? Where do your constituents need to go? Is there any sort of support beyond? Because I know you said you don't take donations. Is there any support beyond just getting out and voting for you that they can do to help spread your message and push your campaign?
Yeah, there's a lot people can do. In our case here, we used ranked choice voting, which is a slightly different system from most other places. But the website is santaclausforalaska.com, or if you tweet, it's Santa Claus for AK, the abbreviation for Alaska. This particular election, the special election, is all being done by mail. The ballots went out the end of last week, so people are already voting. They have until June 11th, but I think 90% of it will be probably done by the end of next week, is my guess, just by mail. You just fill it out, send it in. Pretty straightforward, but if people would like to, since I'm trying to comply with the FEC guidelines, I don't have a staff, I'm not paying anybody anything. I'm encouraging people that support my campaign to make like homemade signs and stuff, put them in their windows or on their lawns, or canvas with friends, or maybe do a little phone banking with friends, or I was even endorsed by PAC Blue America, but I can't coordinate anything with them. So if most people are pretty creative. I would like to see more on social media. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I left in 2018 after saying goodbye to my
Good for you.
309,000 beloved Facebook followers. It was tough to do, but I disagreed with the administration of Facebook, not the platform itself, but just the way it's being run or not run. And I think there are going to be some problems with Twitter now, but that's a whole different story. So any kind of creative support that's independent, I would greatly appreciate. Your time and effort will be well spent. I will serve you, not corporate masters or any of that kind of stuff. So if you want somebody in there who believes that love is the greatest gift, please vote for me. And I have a little blessing for you guys and also for your audience members. May each of you have a lifetime that's filled with happiness, peace, good health, prosperity, and most of all, love, the greatest gift. So thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed being with you, John and Matt.
It has been an absolute pleasure to talk with you today. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I can imagine that trying to run a campaign while also being involved in the local politics of the town of North Pole, and then clearly, taking care of your reindeer on the side as well, probably keeps you up a lot. So thank you so much for giving us your time. We really appreciate it. You have been fantastic. We'll put links for everything that you talked about in the description below this episode, and can't wait to see it. Hopefully see our listeners respond to it, and everybody get out and vote.
And John,
yes, for the rants. Thank you very much.
We're gonna see you this fall. We're gonna go to the Capitol Grill in DC on F Street. All right, John's paying, so come hungry. And then I want to see Nancy. I want to take Nancy Pelosi's podium again. If we could, if you could be responsible for the guests who do that. So I just down the hallway. I'll bring it back. I just want a picture for the Snapchat.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Santa.
Thank you, Santa.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.